When I was 16, I got my first job at a grocery store. My first day there, obviously, I was getting trained, and they put me with this guy named Josh. Josh was a pretty cool guy, and he kind of took me under his wing and really showed me the ropes, not just in training, but also in just like life in general. Because this is my first job. Never really interacted with people who were between my age and my mom's age, right? Like most people I interacted with were either teachers who were around my mom's age, people around my grandmother's age, or people around my sister's age. But Josh, he was 10 years older than me. Um, he had a kid. He had everything. He had multiple jobs, night job, day job. So yeah, he kind of showed me like just how to like do stuff. I started saving up money immediately when I got this job. And eventually I saved up enough that I didn't want my mom to be dropping me off at work anymore. I wanted to like get my own car and kind of start doing my own stuff. Getting a job is kind of like your first step to having freedom, like where you can just kind of do whatever you want. And I definitely wanted a taste of that freedom. So I started talking to Josh about me wanting a car, and he actually offered his car to me. He said, I'll give you a good deal. I'm not gonna scam you. I drive this car every day. It's got its issues, but it'll get you there. I believed him, foolishly. He let me test drive the car. So one day during work, I went out to the parking lot. I drove his car around. He showed me the ropes. Um, and I was pretty excited. I was like, man, I'm really about to get a car. And I told my mom about this car, and she was like immediately super suspicious of it. She was like, yeah, I really don't know about this. Like, just from what you're telling me about this car, it doesn't really seem like it's in great shape. But I was like so desperate for a car, especially one that was cheap, that I kind of like chose to ignore the fact that this car sucked. And so, yeah, I basically told him that it's on. So the first time I ever test drove the car was interesting because the thing about this car is that its ignition was broken. When you put the key in the ignition, it didn't turn. You had to press it in a little bit, and then you could only put it slightly forward because if you put it too far forward, the engine would make this like terrible, terrible noise. And so, oh my God, I almost got the car. That would have been crazy. Anyway, so you had to be really careful with how you started the car. And I, for the like, this, if you put my life on the line, gun to my head, and told me to start that car in that parking lot right there, I would not have been able to. It was really difficult. And so I practiced it for about an hour, and I could not get it consistently. But finally, he was just like, look, you have to be able to start this car. I have complete faith in you and your ability to start this car. I think you'll be okay. And so we did the deal. It was 1,200 cash. Um, I gave it to him, and I, drove away in that car that day. And the car treated me perfectly for a couple months. Um, but then the problems started to come up. Here's the first problem with the car. The car did not have AC, and you know I didn't honestly think much of it. I wasn't like super worried about it. But no, it was a problem. And when the summer came around, you felt that lack of AC, and it was miserable. But again, I'm 16. It's my first car. I was like, you know what? Whatever, right? AC, that's fixable. And so I just kept going along with it. Now, another thing that was crazy about this car is that the dash in the car had been ripped out. So whoever owned the car before Josh did, like, took really awful care of it. So the dash was ripped out, the ceiling was ripped out, the like it was just torn up. The seats were in okay shape, but like the car itself was torn up. The radio was aftermarket, the speakers were sucky, the there were no vents in the AC. It was basically just like a a disaster. Like it looked like it was out of a junkyard. Now, something that's pretty funny to me is that around the time that I bought this car, like a couple months after I bought the car, I actually started like going on a couple of dates with this girl, and you know, it was the only car I had, and so I ended up actually taking her out in that car a couple of times. And I won't lie, I actually do have really good memories with this car. I do think really fondly of this car, but like it was embarrassing in hindsight to think that I this was like the car that I was driving because it was in just such awful shape. But so yeah, I was taking her out in a car with no AC, a car with no dash, no vents, air conditioning like was busted. It was just it just sucked. Now, one day when I was driving to work, I was at almost the last turn to get into work. I was like not even a mile from work. And my tire, my front left tire, completely locked up. And the car swerved for a second off the road, and I lost control of the vehicle for like a split second. And then it just like went back to normal. I just got right back on the road like nothing happened, kept driving. But my heart like stopped in that moment. I don't think I've ever been so scared when I was driving. Like it was terrifying. And I was like, what the heck just happened? So I figured, you know, maybe I ran something over that like made my tire skid. And I was like, you know what? Whatever. You know, it'll be fine. See, when I bought the car, Josh had told me that there was a small cosmetic issue with the outside of the car. He basically was telling me everything that was wrong with the car, and one of the things that he listed was that one of the screws in the tire, like the cap of the screw had come off. And he was like, "Yeah, don't worry about it though. It's just like a cosmetic issue, and it's like $50 to get it fixed. It's not expensive at all, you know. Don't worry about it." And I mean, that's exactly what I did. I didn't worry one bit about it. And so I went back and I told my mom what happened. And she was like, yeah, you know, that is pretty scary. Like, maybe we should get it checked out. So you know, we went out to the car. We looked at the car, and it turns out that it wasn't just like the see what I had pictured was that there was like some kind of nut or something on top of the screw that had like come off. But no, like the entire head of the screw was missing, so it's basically just the stem of the screw. And so what I figured happened was that the tire momentarily might have like slipped the screw a little bit, and maybe the tire like locked because it got stuck or something. I'm honestly not sure, but my mom was like, "You can't drive this. Like this is very dangerous." And so I had my girlfriend at the time, her dad said that she would fix it for me, that he would show me how to fix it, and that we would replace the tire. So yeah, I went over to her house. I pulled my car up, and he was like, "This shouldn't take long." And so he showed me how to um, he showed me how to take the tire off. We took the tire off and then we start inspecting it and he's like, "Oh, like this is pretty bad. This might be a tougher fix than I thought." And I'm like, "You know, what do you mean?" And basically the stem of the screw, there was no way to remove it. It had been gone for the head of the screw had been gone for so long that the stem was kind of sanded down to the point that it was like inside the the like hub of the wheel, and so you couldn't get it out. And he was like, "You're gonna have to replace the entire hub here." And I was like, "Okay, well, what do you think I should do?" And basically, he said that I should go down to the local junkyard, tell them what type of car I had, and tell them the part I needed, and then I could buy it. So, I mean, that's kind of what I did. I just went down to the junkyard. Um, it was ridiculously hot that day, and when I went into the office, there was no one in there, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just wait patiently. So I tried to be patient, and I sat there for like literally half an hour in the stifling heat until finally someone came up and he was like, "Oh, hey, what do you need?" And you know, my mom had already made the order, so he got me the part, brought it out to me on a little hand cart, and when I looked at it, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it besides like it looked like it came from a junkyard. It was covered in cobwebs, it was completely rusted, and I was like, oh my God, there's no way this is going to be safe to put on my car. But, you know, I put it in my back seat and it left a bunch of residue on my hands, but I put it in my back seat, brought it back to my girlfriend's house, and her dad was like, yeah, this is not going to work. Like, I can't install this for you. I'm sorry. Um, and I was like, all right. And he said, if you come back maybe with a newer part, I can fix it for you. And I figured, that'll be fine. But I kid you not, like literally less than a week later, me and my girlfriend broke up, and I didn't want to ask him to fix my car for me. And so now I had a serious issue. I needed to find someone who could fix my car. And that's where my family friend came in. He said that he would fix it for me for free in his garage. So, I mean, I took the offer. I went over to his house one day. I dropped my car off. My aunt drove me home. Um, and he called me later that day and he basically was like, "Hey, so I'm working on the car and that part that your mom ordered for you for your like I know it's really expensive, but it's not gonna work. So I'm gonna fight. I found another way to fix it. It took me a really long time, but I did fix the car." And I was like, "Awesome!" It was really exciting for me. I finally had my car back in order. But he was like, "Look, there's a lot of other problems with this car. I think you should take it to the mechanic and get them all fixed." And I was like, I mean, okay, yeah, sure, I guess. So, um, I thought that would be it. I got the car back. I drove it. It was exactly how I remembered. Everything was fine. A license plate. That was the next problem. My license plate was expired. And actually, the reason that I was even so desperate to get it fixed, to get this screw problem fixed, wasn't even because of my mom saying she didn't want me driving the car anymore, but it was actually because when I had previously gone to get my car inspected, it didn't pass because that screw was broken. So that's kind of what like started this whole fiasco in the first place. So when I brought it back to get it inspected, um, something ridiculous started happening while I was there, and that is the car started overheating. Like I'm talking, I was in line for the inspection and the car started overheating, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is the worst time ever! You got to be kidding me!" And I'm here with my grandfather, and I was like, "What do you think I should do?" And he was basically just like, turn the car off. So that's what I did. So essentially, what was happening here was that previously, when I was at my girlfriend's house and her dad was working on my car, he had seen my temperature gauge, and he was like, "Man, your car runs kind of hot." And I was like, "What do you think that does?" And he was like, "Well, I'm thinking what's happening here is that you just need to get a new thermostat for your car. I believe it was the thermostat and like some sensors." So, I went to the store and I bought them and he showed me how to install them. I installed them right there with him. And I thought that was that. But then he realized that there was actually a leak, a coolant leak in my car. He was like, "You smell that smell? You have a coolant leak." And so he showed me where the leak was. We got it fixed. I went and bought there was like a hose that I needed to get. I got the hose. We fixed the leak, and I thought that was going to be it. I thought the problem would be solved. It was not solved. And when we went to the DMV to get my car inspected, um, it started overheating right there in line. And so I had to keep shutting my car off in line. And it was literally the longest DMV thing of my life. Like I've been to the DMV a couple of times. That was the time that it's been the longest. It was ridiculous. Finally, I pull up to get my car inspected, and the guy is going real slow. This dude, I'm talking, he was coughing like nonstop, like hacking up a lung. And he was like, "Oh yeah, you got this car, huh? Yeah, I had one of these. These things will last you forever." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure." So he gets in the car. He's doing the checklist or whatever. And my girlfriend's dad had been kind enough to clear my codes so that my check engine light wasn't there anymore. Um, And so, I passed. I did pass the inspection, but there was something that happened. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was some kind of issue that I couldn't get an actual new tag. He had to give me like a 3-month temp tag. Um, and he was like, I don't remember what it was, but he was like, once you get that fixed, you'll be all right and you can pass. Now, if you fail 3 times, it'll basically just be like, forget it and I can keep the car. And I was like, all right, I guess that's what I'll have to do. So, get in my car. I'm driving to work a couple days later, and the car completely turns off on me at a light. And you know, I was like, I don't know what to do. There were people behind me, so I just turned on my hazards, And I was like, shoot, like, what do I do? And suddenly there's a dude knocking on my window and he's like waving for me to get out of the car. He's like, get out, put it in neutral. So I get out, I put it in neutral. He helps me push it to the side of the road. And he's like, what happened? And I told him what happened. I was like, my car just like completely stopped at this light. And he was like, did you try starting it up again? And I was like, no, I was just like so in shock that I just kind of froze. So we turned the key. He tries to do it for me, and he's like, what the heck's going on with this thing? And I was like, oh yeah, you basically can't like it's and I had to show him how to do it because my ignition was busted. And he was like, look, you should get some gas cleaner because it started right up. The car started right up when I started it again. He was like, you should try getting some like gas cleaner or something. And I didn't know what the heck that was, so I never ended up doing that. But I texted my mom. I was like, "Look, my car just broke down. I'm parked at this random this like gravel place. So it was like a place that like sold gravel." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm at this gravel place. Can you please come drive next to me home, just in case my car breaks down again?" And she's like, "I'm not there, but your aunt's on the way." So I drove with my aunt following me home. There was no problems at all. And so that's when I kind of realized I need to take this thing to the mechanic. And that's what I did. I made a mechanic appointment. I went ahead and dropped my key off. I dropped the car off, parked it outside. My mom drove me home. And that night, the mechanics called me and they were like, look, we can't figure out how to turn your car off. So we had to just drain your fuel and let the car die, basically. And I was like, okay, I can come in and show you guys. So he's like, yeah, tomorrow could you come in and show us how to turn this car off? So yeah, I went there the next day and they were basically like, we need to talk to you. We can't work on this car. It's too dangerous. And they sent me a list of everything that was wrong with the car, and basically everything imaginable was wrong with it. And there were like pictures. It was terrible. They were like, this car is, I don't even know how this car is driving. Like you just got to get a new car. We can't work on this. And they charged me for, the diagnostic or whatever. And then they were like, I don't know what to tell you, but this car is not going to last much longer. And that's when I realized that I kind of needed to get a new car. And so I was driving home from work one day and I got pulled over because my tags were expired. Because the temp tag that I had was already like 6 months old at this point. It was way, way overdue. And the cop pulled me over and he was like, look, do you know why I pulled you over today? And I was basically just like, yeah, my tags are expired. I understand. And he was like, why are you driving with expired tags? And I gave him like this sob story about how my girlfriend had broken up with me and I was going to get everything fixed, but I couldn't because we weren't together anymore and her dad was going to fix it and whatnot, which like wasn't necessarily a fake story. And whenever I was telling my friends, I told them that I did make that story up, but that story is actually not made up. So Jude, if you're watching this, that actually was the true story. That is actually what happened. I was going to get everything fixed eventually, but then, we broke up. So yeah, anyway, yeah, so yeah, he actually had let me off with a warning, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. So yeah, he let me off with a warning, and I drove home, and I realized like I'm gonna have to get a new car. And so I still had a lot of money saved up, and so that's exactly what I did. I went ahead and bought a new car. But the problem was while I was searching for a new car, I had nowhere to put my car because we have a very, very full driveway. And when I was at work one day, my mom was like, "Look, you like after I actually it wasn't I was on at work. Well, I when I got the car back from the mechanic, my mom was like, "You're not allowed to drive this thing. You need to find somewhere to park it until we can sell it to the junkyard." And I was like, I mean, okay. So I drove to Walmart. I left it in the Walmart parking lot for what I thought would be just a couple of days, like, 2, 3, maybe a week max. And boom, I drove home with my mom. The junkyard, she basically wanted me to call them to get it. And so when I called them, I was like, look, this it still runs. How much are you guys willing to pay for it? And they were only going to give me $80 for this car. And I was like, what? $80? That's like, no, that's not happening. So I told my mom, like, I'm not selling it. There's just no way I'm gonna give up on this car for $80. Like, that's ridiculous. And she was like, yeah, that is kind of a small amount, but at this point, you're either getting $0 or $80, so you kind of got to just do what you can. And so I tried to sell the car. I offered it to some friends of mine. I was like, look, this car's got a ton of problems. I'm not selling you a car that is going to work right away. Like, you're going to need to put work into it. But there were a couple of people who were like mildly interested. But in the end, I kind of just gave up and sold the car. And I told my mom basically, like, at this point, I was in college already. I was like, look, If you want, if you do the call, if you call it into the junkyard, you could just pocket the cash. It's fine. And so yeah, that's what we did. I just basically gave it to my mom so that she could make some money off of it while I was at school. And that was the death of the car. And I eventually bought a new car, and then I got rear-ended, and so that car was a bust. But the payout from getting rear-ended actually helped me buy the car that I have now, which has its problems, but it's much nicer than that car. So I'm pretty grateful for that. Not that I'm grateful for getting rear-ended, but I'm grateful that it ended up not being the end of a car that I actually really liked. Um, and I only had the car that I got after the crappy one for like 6 months and before I got rear-ended. So, well, yeah, that car was in really great shape, but the insurance payout was better than the cost it was going to be to fix it. So I was like, yeah, whatever, and I just let them take the car. So yeah, kind of a long story today, but it's one that I thought was pretty interesting. And yeah, that's about it. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.